Emma wiped down the last table at Moonbeam Cafe. The clock on the wall showed 11:45. Almost time to go home. She looked round the empty coffee shop and sighed. The yellow lights made everything look sad and tired. Rain hit the windows. Hard, Emma could hear it drumming on the roof above her head. She had been working at this cafe for 8 months now. Every night was the same. Serve coffee to people who looked as lost as she felt. Clean tables. Count money. Go home to her cold, small flat. She took off her apron and hung it on the hook by the kitchen door. The apron was covered in coffee. Stains and paint marks that would not wash out. The paint stains were old. Very old. They reminded her of a time when she believed in herself. Emma had wanted to be an artist since she was 7 years old. She had painted every day. Her teachers said she had talent. Her friends said her paintings were beautiful. She had dreamed of galleries and art shows and people buying her work. 3 years ago, she had her first real chance. A gallery in the city centre agreed to show her paintings. Emma was so excited. She invited everyone she knew. She wore her best dress. She stood next to her paintings and waited for people to love them. But the gallery owner, Mr. Richardson, did not love them. He looked at each painting for a long time. Then he spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is amateur work," he said. His voice was cold, childish. "These paintings are a waste of good canvas. I do not know why I agreed to show them." Emma felt her face turn red. People stopped talking. Everyone looked at her. Some people left early. Others whispered behind. Their hands, Emma wanted to disappear. That night, she went home and put all her paints away. She had not touched them since. The paints sat in boxes under her bed, covered in dust. Now she worked at the cafe because she needed money. The rent on her flat was 2 months late. Her landlord called every day. He was not a kind man. Yesterday, he had left a message saying she had 1 week to pay or leave. Emma did not know where she would go. She had no family in the city. Her friends had stopped calling when she stopped painting. She felt alone and scared. Across the city, James sat in his car outside a hotel. His phone was on the seat next to him, waiting for the next ride request. The car was old and made strange noises. The leather seats had cracks in them. But this car was how he made money now. The rain was getting worse. James turned on the radio, but it was only sad songs and bad news. He turned it off again. He liked quiet better. James had been many things in his life: a student, a son, a teacher. Being a teacher had made him happy. He loved children and books, and the way a child's face lit up when they understood something new. He had taught at Riverside Primary School for 5 years. The children liked him. The other teachers respected him. He thought he would teach there until he retired. Then Mrs. Foster complained. She said James had been inappropriate with her daughter Lucy. It was not true. James had never hurt a child. He would never hurt a child. But Mrs. Foster was loud and angry, and she told everyone who would listen. The school investigated. They found no proof. Because there was no proof, James was cleared of all charges. But it did not matter. Parents did not trust him anymore. Other teachers whispered when he walked by. Children were told to stay away from him. The headmaster called James into his office on a Friday morning. "I believe you are innocent," he said. "But parents are worried. Children are asking questions. It would be best if you found another job." James tried other schools, but word had spread. No one would hire a teacher who had been accused, even if he was cleared. James's reputation was broken. So now he drove his old car around the city. He picked up people who needed rides. He made enough money to pay rent and buy food, but he missed teaching. He missed the children's laughter. He missed reading stories aloud and seeing wonder in young eyes. His phone buzzed. One ride request. The address was Moonbeam Cafe. James started his car and drove through the empty streets. Emma locked the cafe door and stepped into the rain. She had no umbrella. The last bus had already gone. And she did not have money for a taxi. But her phone showed one driver nearby. She requested a ride. A few minutes later, an old blue car stopped in front of her. Emma could see the driver in the mirror. He looked tired but kind. She got into the back seat. "Rough night?" the driver asked. His voice was gentle. Emma nodded. She was too tired to talk. She told him her address and leaned back in the seat. That was when she noticed the books on the dashboard. Poetry books, lesson plans with careful handwriting, a red pen for marking papers. "Are you a teacher?" Emma asked quietly. The driver's hands gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Used to be," he said. They drove through the city without talking more. Emma watched the rain on the windows. The driver seemed lost in his own thoughts. When they reached Emma's building, she did not want to get out. The car felt warm and safe. "Thank you," Emma said. She hesitated. "Same time tomorrow." The driver looked at her in the mirror. "I'll be here," he said. Emma got out and ran to her building. She did not know the driver's name, but something about him made her feel less alone. Maybe tomorrow would be different. Neither Emma nor the driver knew that this simple meeting would change both their lives forever. 3 weeks went by quickly. Every night at midnight, Emma stood by the cafe door waiting. Every night, James arrived in his old blue car within a few minutes. The routine became something Emma looked forward to. It was the best part of her day. At first, they did not talk much. Emma was tired after her long shifts. James was quiet by nature. But slowly, bit by bit, they began to share small pieces of their lives. Emma learned that James read books while he waited for ride requests. Not just any books, teaching books. Books about how to help children learn. Books about making lessons fun and interesting. The books were old and worn from use. "Do you still plan to teach again?" Emma asked one night. James shook his head. "I just like to remember when I was good at something," he said. Emma understood that feeling. She carried a small sketchbook in a bag everywhere she went. It was brown leather, soft from years of handling. But she never opened it anymore. James noticed the sketchbook during their second week of rides. Emma held it tightly, like it was precious to her. But her hands never moved to open it. "What do you draw?" James asked one rainy night. Emma looked down at the sketchbook in her lap. Her fingers traced the worn cover. The leather was smooth and familiar. She had bought this book 3 years ago, when she still believed in her dreams. "I don't draw anymore," Emma said quietly. "Haven't for years." "Why not?" James asked. He kept his voice gentle. He could tell this was hard for Emma to talk about. Emma was quiet for a long time. The car moved through the empty streets. Street lights made patterns on the windows. James thought maybe she would not answer. But then Emma spoke. So softly he almost missed it. "Someone told me I wasn't good enough." I believed them. James felt something tight in his chest. He knew exactly how that felt. "I used to teach children to love books," he said. "I was good at it. The kids laughed at my stories. They asked questions. They wanted to learn. Now I'm afraid to even walk past a school." They reached Emma's building, but neither of them moved. The engine was still running. But James did not put the car in drive to leave. Emma did not reach for the door handle. "What happened to you?" Emma asked. Her voice was kind. Not pushy. James looked down at his hands on the steering wheel. They were good hands, strong hands that had written thousands of lessons plans, hands that had helped children learn to read. Now they just gripped a steering wheel all day. A parent accused me of something terrible, James said slowly. It wasn't true. I would never hurt a child. But she was loud and angry. She told everyone who would listen. The school investigated and found no proof. Because there was no proof. But it didn't matter. James paused. This was hard to talk about. By the time everything was sorted out, my reputation was destroyed. Parents didn't trust me. Other teachers whispered behind my back. No one wants to hire a teacher with that kind of history. Even when he's innocent. Emma felt pain in her chest. She knew that feeling of being judged unfairly. I had my first gallery showing 3 years ago, she said. I was so excited. I thought it was the start of my real career as an artist. Emma's voice got quieter. The gallery owner looked at my paintings in front of everyone. He said my work was worthless. Amateur, childish. He said I was wasting good canvas. Everyone heard him. I was so embarrassed. I haven't painted since. They sat in the quiet car. Outside. The city slept round them. Inside. To people who had lost their dreams share their pain. It felt strange, but good to tell someone who understood. Maybe they were wrong, James said. Finally, maybe that gallery owner didn't know what he was talking about. Emma looked at James in the mirror. His eyes were kind. Maybe they all were wrong, she replied. Maybe that parent lied about you because she was angry about something else. They both knew it was possible. But knowing and believing were different things. When someone destroys your confidence, it is hard to build it back up. The next night, something changed. Emma still waited by the cafe door at midnight. James still arrived within minutes. But this time, Emma brought her sketchbook out of her bag. She did not open it. But she held it in her lap during the ride instead of keeping it hidden. James noticed right away. He looked at Emma in the mirror and smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. Progress. He said, small steps, Emma agreed. She felt a tiny spark of something she had not felt in 3 years. It was not confidence yet. It was not courage. But it was the beginning of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could try again. James felt something similar. For the first time since he lost his job, he thought about walking past a school without fear. Maybe he could volunteer somewhere. Maybe he could help children again. Even if it was not in a classroom, they were beginning to hope again. Neither of them said it out loud. Hope was fragile. It needed to grow slowly, carefully, but it was there, small and new, like a seed planted in good soil. Both Emma and James went to sleep that night feeling a little less alone in the world. The storm started early on Tuesday evening. Emma could see dark clouds gathering outside the cafe windows as she served coffee to the evening customers by 9 o'clock. Rain was hitting the glass so hard it sounded like stones. More people than usual came into Moonbeam Cafe that night. They wanted to get out of the rain. Emma was busy serving hot drinks and wiping down wet tables. The cafe felt crowded and noisy. Everyone was talking about the weather. Worst storm in months, said one taxi driver, shaking water from his coat. Roads are flooding already, said another customer, looking worried. Emma watched the water rising in the street outside. She had never seen it this bad. When midnight came, she was tired and worried. How would she get home in this weather? James was having problems too. His old car was not built for heavy rain. Water splashed up from the road, making it hard to see. The engine made worse sounds than usual. But he had promised Emma he would pick her up. He always kept his promises. When James arrived at the cafe, Emma ran through the rain to his car. She was soaked in seconds. The water was ankle-deep on the street. "This is crazy weather," Emma said, getting into the back seat. "Yes," James agreed. "Hold on tight." James drove carefully through the flooded streets. The car moved slowly through the deep water. Other cars had stopped by the roadside. Some had broken down completely. Halfway to Emma's flat, something went wrong. White smoke began coming from under the car's hood. The engine made a loud grinding noise. Then it started to smell like burning wool. "I think we need to stop," James said. He sounded worried. James pulled the car into the parking lot of Danny's Diner. It was an all-night restaurant that stayed open 24 hours. The parking lot was mostly empty, but at least it was not flooded like the street. "Come on," James said. "We should get inside until the storm passes." They ran through the rain to the diner door. Inside, it was warm and bright. The smell of coffee and fried food filled the air. Only a few people were there: a tired waitress with gray hair, a security guard reading a newspaper, and an old man drinking coffee alone. Emma and James found a corner booth near the window. They ordered tea and sat watching the storm outside. Lightning lit up the sky. Thunder rolled overhead. The rain showed no sign of stopping. "This might be our last ride together," James said quietly. Emma looked at him with surprise and fear. "Why?" "What do you mean?" James looked down at his hands. "The car is dying. You heard those noises. I think the engine is finished. I don't have money to fix it. Without the car, I can't work as a driver." Emma felt her heart sink. James had become the most important part of her day. Their midnight rides were the only time she felt less alone. "What will you do?" Emma asked. "I might have to leave the city," James said sadly. "Move back home with my mother. She lives in a small town 3 hours away. Maybe I can find some kind of work there." Emma felt panic rising in her chest. She could not imagine her life without James. He was her friend, her only friend. "I might be leaving too," Emma said in a small voice. "I can't pay my rent. It's 3 months late now. My landlord called yesterday. He said I have until Friday to pay everything I owe, or he will throw me out." They sat in silence for a moment. Both of them were facing the same problem. No money, no home, no hope. The storm outside seemed to match how they felt inside. Emma watched the rain hitting the diner windows. She thought about her life. 3 years of hiding, 3 years of being afraid, 3 years of letting one cruel man's words control everything she did. "I'm tired of being afraid," Emma said suddenly. James looked at her with surprise. "What do you mean?" Emma's voice got stronger. "I'm tired of letting one person's opinion control my entire life. I'm tired of pretending I don't care about art, when it's the only thing that ever made me feel alive." Without thinking about it, Emma reached into her bag. She pulled out her brown leather sketchbook. For the first time in 3 years. She opened it. Her hands shook as she picked up a pencil. She had not drawn anything in so long. What if she had forgotten how? What if Mr. Richardson had been right about her talent? But Emma started to draw anyway. First, she drew James's profile as he sat across from her. His kind eyes, his gentle hands holding his teacup. Then she drew the tired waitress carrying a pot of coffee, the security guard reading his newspaper, the rain streaming down the windows. As she drew, Emma felt something wake up inside her. Something she had thought was dead. The joy of creating, the magic of making pictures come alive on paper. "You're talented," James whispered, watching her work. "Really talented." Emma's eyes filled with tears. I had forgotten. She said, I had forgotten how this feels. James reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out some folded papers, old lesson plans from when he was a teacher. He found the one he was looking for. I wrote this lesson for my students about overcoming fear. James said, I never got to teach it. James began to read aloud. His voice was quiet at first, then grew stronger. The lesson talked about courage. It said that heroes were not people without fear. Heroes were people who felt afraid but did brave things. Anyway, we've been hiding, Emma said when James finished reading. Yes, James agreed. But maybe it's time to stop hiding. The next morning, Emma woke up feeling different. The storm had passed, but something inside her had changed too. She looked at her sketchbook on the small table next to her bed. Last night at the diner, she had drawn for the first time in 3 years. Her fingers still remembered how to hold a pencil. Her eyes still saw the world in lines and shapes, instead of going home to pack her things. Emma walked to Miller's art supply shop on Oak Street. She had walked past this shop hundreds of times but never went inside. Today was different. The shop smelled like paint and paper. Brushes hung in neat rows on the wall. Tubes of paint sat in colorful displays. Emma felt like a child in a toy store. "Can I help you?" asked the shop owner, an elderly man with paint under his fingernails. "I need paints," Emma said. "Just a small set. I haven't painted in a long time," the man smiled. "Starting again is always the hardest part," he said kindly. Emma bought a basic set of acrylic paints with the tip money from her cafe work. Red, blue, yellow, white, and black. Just the basics. But it felt like buying hope. Across town, James was using his last tank of petrol. His car had started that morning, but he knew it would not last much longer. He drove to the community center on Maple Avenue. He had seen their sign many times. Volunteers welcome. The community center was a busy place. Children ran around the halls. Teenagers sat at tables doing homework. Older people played cards in the corner room. "I would like to volunteer," James told the woman at the front desk. She had kind eyes and graying hair. "That's wonderful," she said. "What can you do?" James felt nervous. "I used to be a teacher, English, but I could help with anything." The woman, whose name was Mrs. Patterson, looked interested. "We need help with reading tutoring. Many of our children struggle with books. Would you be interested?" James felt his heart jump. "Yes," he said. "I would love that." Within 1 week, everything changed. James came to the community center every afternoon at 3 o'clock. Children waited for him. They brought their books and homework. They asked him to read stories aloud. There was Marcus, age 10, who had never finished a whole book. There was Sarah, age 8, who was afraid to read out loud. There was David, age 12, who loved adventure stories but could not read the big words. James worked with each child. He was patient and kind. He made reading fun again. The children began to trust him. They asked questions. They laughed at his jokes. They begged him to stay longer each day. "Will you be here tomorrow?" They asked every afternoon. Yes, James always said, "I will be here." Emma was also changing her life. She brought her new paints to Moonbeam Cafe and asked her manager, Mr. Chen, if she could paint something on the blank wall near the front window. "Paint what?" Mr. Chen asked, "A mural." Emma said, "Something bright and hopeful. It might bring in more customers." Mr. Chen looked at the boring white wall. "Why not?" he said. "It cannot look worse." Emma started painting during her breaks. She painted a sunrise over the city. The sun was bright yellow and orange. The buildings were painted in warm colors, gold and pink and soft purple. The sky was blue with white clouds that seemed to move. Customers began to notice. They stopped to look at Emma's mural while they waited for their coffee. They smiled. They asked questions. Some took photos with their phones. "This is beautiful," said one customer. "You are very talented." Emma felt proud for the first time in years. These were real people, not art critics. They liked her work because it made them feel good, not because it followed art school rules. Every evening, Emma and James met at the cafe. They did not just share rides anymore. They shared their days. James told Emma about the children he was teaching. Emma showed James her mural as it grew larger and more beautiful each day. Marcus read his first whole book today, James said. One evening, it was a story about a boy and his dog. He was so proud. People stopped to take pictures of the sunrise. Emma said, "They say it makes them feel hopeful." One Thursday evening, as Emma painted and James helped a teenager with his English homework, a woman walked into the cafe. She was well dressed and carried herself like someone important. She had a business card in her hand. The woman watched Emma paint for several minutes. Emma was adding small details to the clouds, making them look soft and real. She was so focused on her work that she did not notice the woman watching. "Excuse me," the woman said finally. Emma turned round, her paintbrush still in her hand. "I'm Helen Murphy," the woman said. "I run the Riverside Gallery downtown. I have been watching you paint, and I would like to talk to you." Emma felt her paintbrush freeze in her hand. A gallery owner wanted to talk to her. After what happened 3 years ago, Emma was afraid of gallery owners. James stepped closer to Emma. He could see she was scared. He wanted her to know he was there to support her. "I am not interested in perfect technique," Helen continued. "I am interested in truth. Your work has something that most gallery pieces do not have: genuine emotion, real feeling. Would you consider showing your paintings with us?" Emma looked at James. His eyes were encouraging. She looked back at her mural. The sunrise seemed to glow with life and hope. "Yes," Emma said, her voice stronger than she expected. "I would like that very much." James squeezed Emma's shoulder. "You did it," he whispered. "We both did," Emma replied, smiling. They had both found their courage again, together. 6 months passed like a dream. Emma could hardly believe how much had changed since that stormy night at the diner. Now she stood in the Riverside Gallery, wearing a simple black dress and her nicest shoes. Round her hung 12 paintings she had created over the past months. Each painting told part of her story. There was the midnight cafe with warm yellow light spilling onto empty streets. There was James's old blue car driving through rain. There was the stormy diner where they had first opened their hearts to each other. There was the community center where James taught children to love reading again. The opening night of Emma's art show was busier than she had ever imagined. People filled the gallery, moving slowly from painting to painting. They read the small white cards that explained each piece. Emma watched their faces carefully. Some people smiled. Some looked thoughtful. Some wiped tears from their eyes. An elderly man with white hair stopped in front of Emma's favorite painting. It showed James sitting in a circle with 5 children, reading a story aloud. The children's faces were bright with wonder and joy. James looked peaceful and happy, the way he was meant to look. The old man stared at the painting for a long time. When Emma walked over to him, she saw that his eyes were wet with tears. "This painting," the man said to Emma, "it reminds me why I became a teacher 50 years ago. I had forgotten that feeling. The joy of seeing children learn something new." Emma felt warmth spread through her chest. "The man in the painting is my friend James," she said. "He loves teaching children. You can see that love in his face," the old man said. "You have painted something true." Emma moved through the crowd, talking to people who stopped to look at her work. A young woman said the cafe painting made her feel less lonely. A businessman said the stormy diner reminded him of a difficult time in his own life when a stranger had helped him. James found Emma near the back of the gallery. He was wearing his best white shirt and a blue tie. In his hands, he carried a folded piece of paper. "I have something for you," James said. His voice was nervous but excited. James unfolded the paper carefully. It was covered with his neat handwriting. "I wrote this poem about us," he said, "about second chances and friendship." The gallery was noisy with conversation, but somehow people began to notice James standing there with his paper. Slowly, the room grew quieter. People turned to listen. James began to read in his clear teacher's voice. "When we met, we were both hiding from who we were meant to be. We had let fear make us small. We had let other people's words become our truth. But sometimes the greatest gift we can give someone is the courage to try again." His voice grew stronger as he continued. "In the darkness of midnight rides, we found light. In the storm that broke our plans, we found shelter in each other's stories. We learned that healing happens not alone, but together. We discovered that hope shared is hope doubled." The gallery was completely quiet now. Everyone was listening to James's words. Emma felt tears on her cheeks, but they were happy tears. James finished reading. "We thought we were broken, but we were just waiting for someone to remind us that we were worth saving." When James stopped reading, the room was silent for a moment. Then people began to clap. It was gentle applause, the kind that comes from hearts that have been touched. Emma hugged James tightly. In his ear, she whispered something that made him smile widely. "The community center offered me a job," Emma said quietly. "They want me to teach art classes to the children you tutor. We would work together." James's eyes lit up with joy. "And I have news too," he whispered back. "The school board called yesterday. They want to interview me for a teaching position at Riverside Primary. Someone saw me working at the community center and told them what a good teacher I am." They looked round the gallery together. People were studying Emma's paintings with faces full of understanding and hope. These were not art critics looking for a perfect technique. These were regular people who saw truth and beauty in Emma's work. "We saved each other," Emma said, watching a mother explain one of the paintings to her young daughter. "No," James replied, shaking his head gently. "We reminded each other that we were worth saving. We were always worth saving. We just forgot for a while." As the evening came to an end, Emma learned that 3 people wanted to buy her paintings. A young couple chose the cafe painting for their new home. The elderly teacher bought the picture of James reading to children. A woman who ran a bookshop wanted the stormy diner painting for her store. But selling the paintings was not the most important thing. Emma had found herself again. She remembered who she was before fear made her hide. She was an artist. She had always been an artist, even when she stopped believing it. James had his interview on Monday morning. For the first time in years, he felt ready to stand in front of a classroom again. He knew he was meant to be a teacher. Emma had helped him remember that. As they left the gallery, Emma and James walked to his car. It was the same old blue car, but James had been able to fix the engine. The city lights twinkled round them like stars. They felt ready for whatever tomorrow would bring. Their chance meeting in the rain had become something beautiful. It had become a friendship that proved the most important truth of all. Sometimes the best way to heal yourself is to help someone else find their way home.